And welcome back to episode 6 of Football Is Groovy with Dev and Matt. Ready to talk about some footy.
Yep.
Got some interesting topics we want to talk about. Just going to start with a quick little recap of the games played over the last couple of days. A few interesting results in there, especially for the London sides. I think shock of the weekend, though, will be the Everton losing to West Ham.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, it's a competitive game, and it's also only a 1-0 loss, so it's not showing that West Ham were absolute class, and they just managed to edge it. But still a shocker, definitely.
Yeah, I think the way that Everton have been playing, you'd expect them to be, especially at home,
Yeah.
you'd expect them to beat West Ham with the inconsistencies that West Ham have had. But like you say, it's just a 1-0. So I don't think they'll be too concerned. Points are points, 3 points in the bag.
And in this competitive mix,
the way the table's shaping up, you take those 3 points. Doesn't matter how you get them.
Yeah.
Then I think next big result was the Tottenham game. I think 3-0 to Spurs at home, which is probably on paper the result that you would expect. But Leeds certainly had their chances, especially at the start with Bamford.
Yeah, I mean, and having Bamford in my squad, I would have liked him to...
I was very happy watching those balls go over the top of the crossbar.
Yeah, so unfortunate for him not to score. But yeah, I think a little bit unlucky. They definitely... Or I was expecting them to put up a little bit more of a fight, at least in terms of goals. And yeah, Tottenham just looked, I think, pretty calm in general. Nothing that was... Well, they didn't have much to worry about. Once it went 3-0 up, it was really a... Well, actually, I say that, and I think one of the commentators also mentioned and said, it was the 80th minute, and just the other week, this was when West Ham started to come back. Yes. So you never really know.
You never know with Tottenham. Yeah. Even when the final whistle's been blown, you sit there and you're like, okay, is the VAR check coming something now? But yeah, I think Leeds had a good run of... they were playing quite well at the start, and they gave away the cheap penalty on the tackle on Ndombele, which I think that just... totally derailed their performance. I think Kane slotting home easily, then Kane and Son linking up again for a beautiful cross from Kane, just magically worked in from Son, and then obviously topping it off at the end with Alderweireld getting his goal. I think the season that Leeds have had, when they play well, they play well. When they don't play well, they really don't play well.
Yeah. They get exposed really easily in some situations.
Yeah,
and then it's pretty much a feast for the other team.
Yeah, it's a lot of people have lately on social media been commenting on Marcelo Bielsa's his tactics and questioning, is he really a football genius or is he just getting lucky? Because they are so frail at the back. When they're going forward and they're playing well and they're dominating the game, fine.
Yeah.
But as soon as a team starts controlling them and opening them up, then the floodgates come in.
Yeah, well, the fact that their left back wears number 10
it's a bit confusing.
It says everything. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because a team that wins 5-0, not once but twice, shows that they definitely have the ability to score goals. Yes. At least through Bamford, they definitely are able to. But yeah, being so fragile at the back, it is a little bit worrying because if they're able to lose 3-0 and they're able to lose 6-2 against Man U, it doesn't show signs that they can consistently play like this throughout the season and hope to be at least contesting for the top 8.
Well, exactly. I mean, you look at a team like Liverpool.
Yeah.
If they concede 1 goal, or in the odd chance that they concede 2 goals, then it's normally fine because they've scored 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have a shaky defense and you're going to concede like Leeds have been doing, then you need to be scoring goals consistently at the other end, which it seems like they're scoring all their goals in one match and then they're not scoring and then they're all scoring all their goals.
Yeah. So it might be saying something more about their opponent than them.
Yeah, it could be how they set up against certain opponents. I think for Tottenham, the way that they set up at the start, putting pressure on Spurs right from the start, knowing that Tottenham are under pressure with the couple of results that they've had, no win in their last 4 games. They were attacking, going hard at Tottenham, and then it slipped. Something clicked, gave away a penalty, and they lost all the momentum that they had, and Tottenham could just play their game.
Yeah, and there were a couple changes in the lineup as well in Tottenham's squad, which in the end worked out. So one of those big changes was, or not changes, but one of the big pieces in my point of view is Doherty being at the right back. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that Aurier was just, at least in his performance against Leicester, was just really terrible, to put it lightly. So him being replaced by Doherty makes a lot of sense, at least give him a try. We haven't seen that much this season. And this game wasn't the best in the end. I think overall, I think he did an okay job. The red card in the end was just
unnecessary.
Yeah.
That point in the game, you're just asking for trouble. And you could see he knew it. As soon as the tackle went down, the whistle blew, he knew, second yellow card, I'm off. He knew he'd made a mistake, but exactly you say, why?
Yeah.
That's been the question I'm sure Jose Mourinho would have asked him is, why? What's the point of doing that now?
Yeah, because now he has to resort to Aurier being on the right back. And sure, maybe he'll come back and have a good performance, but I think it would have been good for Doherty to get a couple of games in a row and just get that consistency going.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think a bit silly and reckless, and definitely not something that helps the team. But other than that, there also was Bergwijn up on the right wing.
Yeah, Bergwijn coming back into the team. Something I was quite happy to see. We obviously haven't seen him really since the Liverpool game. Yeah. Obviously had that miss there. They could have put the game to bed. So good to see him back. I think he belongs in the starting lineup. I think he's not the most aggressive player in terms of he's going to score goals against you, he's going to assist. But I think the work rate that he put in, pressing, getting back on defense, making the tackles, kind of breaking up the opposition's attacks and starting Tottenham's attacks, I think he's incredibly valuable from that regard. Yeah. So I think it was good to see him back, obviously freeing up Son and Kane a bit. And
definitely.
What are the chances that he comes back into the side and now Son and Kane are both score and both assist each other again?
Definitely an interesting insight, because his performance against Liverpool, although not scoring the goal, unfortunately, definitely it reminds me of that that performance in the same way. It definitely looks like the front three plays holistically better. At least Son and Kane play better. So yeah, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what he's doing that allows that to flow. But yeah, I definitely want to see Bergwijn play again in that right wing position.
Yeah. Look, obviously Tottenham play now on Tuesday in the Carabao Cup against Brentford. So it'll be interesting to see what lineup Mourinho goes for that.
Never know.
Obviously, this is a busy time of the year. So it'll be interesting to see, whether that front three does start. I'd imagine because Mourinho wants to win a trophy, he doesn't want any possible slip-up. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Bergwijn, Kane, Son line up together.
Could be, yeah.
Might shake it up, start Vinicius. Whether or not he trusts Vinicius to come in as the striker and to fulfill Harry Kane's role, especially in a semi-final of the cup that you want to win as Tottenham. I think he'll go with a very strong side. I don't think now semi-finals, and if they get to the finals, I don't think he's going to take any chances.
I agree with that.
So it'll be interesting to see, and then obviously following Premier League game will also be interesting to see what lineup he goes with then. I hope to see Bergwijn in that lineup. Yeah. I think that's where he belongs. I think in terms of Moura and Bale, I think at the moment Bergwijn will always be the shoe-in out of those three for me.
Yeah, so then on that exact note, for the right wing position, Tottenham's got some good depth.
Yes.
Which you just said. So you've got Moura, you've got Bale, you've got Bergwijn, and we've seen them all play. And at least in this season, I think Bergwijn looks to be the best choice. But what do you think, as being Jose, what do you think is the best decision at the moment out of those three choices?
Look, it's tough because obviously Moura's been, out of these three now, he's been at the club the longest, excluding Bale, before he went to Real and all of that.
Yeah.
So you've got him as the veteran in the side from that regard. Then you've got Bale, who is a serial winner with Real Madrid. He knows how to win trophies and all that. He's got the experience. And then you've got Bergwijn, who's the youngest out of all of them, and he's the one who's giving the most in terms of work rate and all of that. So I think based on that, in terms of Jose's game plan, Bergwijn is by 100% by far the right fit. He can play to Mourinho's game plan perfectly. That kind of, whether it's on the counter, he's obviously lightning quick. He's got good range of passing, work rate running back on defense, making the tackles, cutting back. Whereas I think with Lucas and Bale, yes, they're obviously both also very quick. good finishers, but do they give that work rate that Bergwijn offers? I don't think so. That might just be the age thing, especially in Bale's case.
Yeah, could be.
So it's tough though, because obviously in an attacking position you want a guy who can score goals.
Yes.
But now you've got someone who apparently is allowing two other players in the team, now obviously Kane and Son, to get back to scoring themselves. So do you take the chance of having someone like Bale in there who has a banger of a left foot but isn't really scoring or assisting, or someone who doesn't do that but is now freeing up the other players, putting pressure on them? So now Son and Kane don't necessarily have to press as much because you've got Bergwijn who's doing it for them, and they can get into space, and then if a ball comes loose, it's an easy counter-attack because they aren't necessarily on the ball. They've got two players up front. It's not Kane looking for Son or Son looking for Kane. It's now Bergwijn looking for Son or Kane.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, definitely in that sort of game plan, I think it makes the most sense to pick Bergwijn. And in general, I also would agree with that. But probably in some more technical free kick situations, having someone like Gareth Bale, I'm pretty sure adds just a ton of experience and good decision making. Although, has he been the best goal scorer? I'm not too sure, so it's still debatable. But I think Gareth Bale definitely is a good option and would be highly valuable in the attacking team. Also, just on the counter, he's also really good. We've seen him on, especially that one. I'm thinking of that one goal where he runs down the left line.
Oh, about rail.
You know. So he's capable of scoring amazing solo and team goals. So definitely has scored more goals than Bergwijn. So it is tough to pick, but yeah, at this current situation, at least with Bale's injury, it makes sense to go with Bergwijn.
Yeah, 100%. I think it certainly appears on paper, if you look at the results, that Tottenham have been playing better when Bergwijn has been starting. So I think just based purely on that, you have to stick with what's been going right for you.
Yeah, true.
Because it's interesting to watch when Bergwijn is playing. He's almost playing as a second right wing back on top of Oreo Hodoti, playing not as high up as Son and Kane do. Almost playing like an inverted or a flipped kind of formation on the one side. So it's quite interesting to see how Tottenham do line up when Bergwijn is in the side. And then that's owing then to his work rate and his pace. Jose knows this guy will give us all, and he can either pick up the ball at our goal box and sprint, or he can pick it up on halfway, or he can pick it up in the opposition half, and he's got the skill and ability to create an attack. Not to say Moura and Bale can't do that. I just think Bergwijn is, in Jose's eyes, the better fit.
Okay, well, yeah, so the Tottenham game was definitely one of the more interesting ones. But another interesting one is the Arsenal game.
Yes. Obviously for me, I saw 4-0 on the score sheet and I was a bit disappointed that West Brom didn't pull through. But I watched the highlights of that game and I have to say, well done to Arsenal. That was one of the performances of the season that I've seen, especially those first two goals. Kieran Tierney became the Scottish Messi all of a sudden there. Brilliant bit of self-skill, and to finish on his weaker foot as well. Left back, bending it in with your right foot. Certainly not easy.
No, fantastic goal. Just individual brilliance.
Right, I mean, if that was me, that would have gone 10 tiers up. And then their second goal for me, at the moment, at this point in time, goal of the season. And that hurts for me to say.
Yeah, well, actually, you're forgetting about one specific Tottenham goal by a very...
the Sonny's goal against said Arsenal. This is... Okay, fine. Second goal of the season.
Yeah, I think we have to put Son's goal. That was a fantastic goal. But no credit taken away from Arsenal in this one. I mean, 5 or 6 team passes. It really just sliced through the whole defense. And just a great team goal. We all love to see those goals. And it definitely at least shows some signs that Arsenal might be back to some winning football.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think for me, one thing I want to talk about now, obviously we've spoken about Willian and Ozil at Arsenal, them being the two creative players in the midfield. Obviously Ozil's not even featuring, and Willian just hasn't fired since his move from Chelsea. But you're starting to see a lot of Emile Smith-Rowe now in that midfield of Arsenal, and he was centre to that their second goal.
Yeah.
Obviously Saka the one finishing, but Smith-Rowe with the first touch, then the assist. So do you think Arsenal have maybe found this creative spark that they've been looking for in that midfield role in Smith-Rowe? Obviously being a London youngster, he's obviously got Arsenal in his heart. So is that what they've been looking for?
I mean, it has to be at this point. There's no real other option, at least that we've seen throughout this season. So yeah, I think it would be good to give him a try. You never know. It could be the next star that Arsenal have been looking for. So yeah, right now he's been looking really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's something about the young players coming through. You got to prove yourself.
Yes.
I think seeing João Felix at Benfica was a sort of similar situation, because he only came in at the second half of the season and he was just scoring goal after goal after goal. So it's, to me, it looks like one of those situations. Getting a lot of young players can just rejuvenate the team. And yeah, I mean, if he's at the center of it, then it might not only be that he's going to be playing well, but he's also creating these opportunities for someone like Saka to take advantage of.
Yeah. And I must say, I've been very impressed with Arsenal's youngsters, particularly Smith-Rowe now. Saka, obviously, he's been there the longest out of the three youngsters now that I'm talking about. From last season and the start of this season, he's by far been one of their standout players for me. And then Martinelli, obviously coming back from injury recently now. But if you just look at the work rate that he puts in compared to Lacazette and Aubameyang, it's
not comparable.
First name on the team sheet when it comes to the striker position.
Yeah.
Obviously, another interesting topic about that match is the starting lineup not including Aubameyang.
Yes. So I've seen a couple of people talk about this point and saying that, it's no surprise that Arsenal aren't scoring if Aubameyang's, or Arsenal's not winning if Aubameyang's not scoring. And I think this might be proving that point just a little bit further. Sure, Lacazette scored, so it might not have any, and he's having a good run of form now. I think it's 4 or 5 goals in his last 2 games he's played. So he's definitely playing a little bit better. But something with Aubameyang, I think, was a big influence, at least in the attacking of Arsenal. So I'm not sure exactly what was causing that. But yeah, it's no surprise that now you take him out, replace him with some fresh blood, and you're all of a sudden seeing goals. Yeah,
Steph, I think a lot of people forget how old Aubameyang actually is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's similar to Bale. They're also in their 30s now, so they're not the same Aubameyang, the same Bale that were at Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid. I think a lot of people forget that bodies change, especially playing the sport that they do.
It's a fair point, but at the same time, I think he scored, what was it, 2 or 3 seasons ago that for Arsenal he scored 30 goals in a season.
Yeah.
So he was...
he won tied golden boot with Mane and Salah from
quickly. So he's more than capable.
100%. But people need to cut him some slack as well. I think, especially with what's going on at Arsenal at the moment, I think it's tough to play at your best when there are these problems going on at the club. I think it doesn't matter. I mean, you just look at Messi now at Barca with his free kicks and all of that.
Yeah,
Barca's having problems, Messi's struggling.
I see that point.
And that's one of the world's best players.
Yeah, well, again, and it's no surprise, take him out of the equation and you're starting to see some goals. So it wouldn't be surprising, honestly, if you don't see him play for a while.
No, if I was Arteta, I would stay on the bench.
Yeah. Which is just honestly so weird, because at the end of last season when we saw the transfer for Willian go through, we were going, okay, wow. Aubameyang, Lacazette and Willian as a front three for Arsenal. That's
a dangerous front three.
Right. Now we're seeing Willian's off. Aubameyang's
off. Lacazette only coming into form.
Exactly. So it's like, this is not at all what we expected. I don't think anyone expected. But yeah, they'll definitely make do with what they've got. And it's definitely good to see Arsenal coming back.
100%. Yeah, well,
to a certain point, yeah.
But yeah, those are kind of the real notable results. I think everything else kind of went to plan. Crystal Palace beating Sheffield. No surprises there. I think then obviously today, 2 very interesting games. Leicester away to Newcastle and the big one for this match week, City and Chelsea going head to head.
Yeah.
Just regarding the first one, I think Leicester will clean up Newcastle.
Yeah.
I think Leicester You obviously never know the way that the season's going. I think
honestly,
Newcastle could definitely do it, especially being at home. They've got players who can score goals and create chances. But I think...
And coming off a draw against Liverpool, it's not a bad confidence booster to walk into this game. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and then obviously the big one, City against Chelsea. I think it's going to be an interesting match. I think Chelsea on a bit of a slump at the moment.
Yeah.
Results haven't quite been going the way that they would have wanted them to go. So it'll be interesting to see how much aggression they play with, how confident they are compared to now the City team or even City, who haven't had the best of seasons, are still City.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Chelsea have been playing well, or at least playing consistently well. So, yeah, they've got some problems there, and I don't know if they'll be able to do it against City, honestly. I think if I were to pick a team, City looks like definitely the safe bet in this game. I think they'll take it to be, I think, 2-0 probably.
I think it would be quite ugly.
You're right.
I think City could very easily unlock Chelsea's defense. I think if they start putting pressure on Chelsea, I think Chelsea could collapse.
Interesting. Yeah.
But at the same time, I could see Chelsea pulling something out of the hat here and sneaking 2-1 or 1-0 or...
Does anyone know anything anymore? But
not this season, no.
Yeah, at least my gut feeling would say that City should take this, and if they do, I think they'll be very happy because with their games in hand, to capture 3 points right now away, I mean, especially against Chelsea, it'll be big for them. I think going into the rest of the season. Yeah,
I think they'll know, as obviously just being a traditional top 6 side, Chelsea are one of their title challengers.
Yes.
So to get a win over them, doesn't matter how you do it. Like you said earlier, a win is a win.
Yeah.
So if City can win, they'll be very happy with it. But if Chelsea can win, they'll be even happier.
Oh, 100%.
Chelsea will know how important this game is.
100%, yeah.
Because obviously now with Arsenal finding some form, Arsenal are only 3 points behind Chelsea.
Exactly.
So Chelsea know that they now need to win.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you might see that extra fight from Chelsea.
Yeah, well, everything in theory. I mean, Chelsea haven't had the best form come out of Havertz at the moment. Van is on a dry spell. So the team looks to be still trying to find its feet. And I mean, even if they do take it, they're still under pressure, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting match to watch, though.
Definitely.
I think then obviously we've got one match tomorrow, Southampton, Liverpool. I think as much as I'd like to see Southampton play the way that they've been playing the last couple of weeks and all of that, I think against Liverpool, I don't think we'll see the good Southampton. I think we'll see the Southampton from the start of the season when they capitulated against Tottenham. I think that team could come to the front again. I think Liverpool could very easily unlock them. It'll be interesting because I know Thiago has been back in training.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see if he's on the bench and if he plays any part in the game. Might not be the worst game if he's obviously fit to bring him back into, give him the last half an hour or something like that. But I think Liverpool will walk away comfortably, maybe like 3-1 or something like that.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it kind of does bring up the question of what's really been happening with Liverpool in at least the last 2 games, because they drew against Newcastle. They drew against I'm trying to remember the last game that they played before Newcastle. There was 2 draws. So it just gives opportunity for the rest of the teams to come back, and that's what allowed Man U to now come into tied first.
Yeah.
So they let it slip, and now kind of seeing the pressure arise as a result of that. So yeah, it could be that maybe they'll get their act together and realize that they really do need to win this game if they want to stay top. So will they unlock Southampton? I mean, defensively, Southampton have looked all right this season, at least in the later sense, and they have been a strong fighting team. Being at home, I mean, yeah, it's tough. I think Liverpool, without a doubt, have the quality and the clinical precision to clean this game up from the start. So no doubt in that sense. But I think West Brom's game, that's the West Brom, that with Big Sam coming in was maybe a little bit of a different situation because it was new manager. He's had a really good success rate playing at Anfield. So I think he just knew how to beat Liverpool, even though it was the honestly
he's probably the best performing manager against Liverpool lately.
Yeah. I mean, he's done so well against Liverpool, and this game or that game was no different because he basically parked two buses of, I think it was like
6-4,
which not great to watch, but did the job, and they will be happy to come away with a draw there. So
I should have parked that same bus against Arsenal.
Yeah, I don't know what the difference is, but they obviously didn't have the confidence in Arsenal to win. Yeah, but so I don't know. I think Liverpool. I think I probably agree with you, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly how many they put past them.
I think it depends on the mood that Liverpool are in. You know, how big do they want the goal difference to be now?
Yeah. So, with Bruno's performance in this last game, against Aston Villa, just again showing his class, and really pulling them through for the win. I think the question now is coming up as to whether or not, because there was a stat that was shown where it was comparing across all the leagues, the number of goals and assists, and Bruno's stats were better than Messi's. Yeah. So now the question is starting to arise: well, is Bruno the player that Man U have been waiting for? You know, is he essentially the savior player, which I think is kind of what they were going for with Pogba. That's what they were hoping to get out of him. But this is starting to shape up into a kind of very different sort of, at least to me, a very different perspective, because it's really looking like he's going to be a superstar the way he's playing at Man U.
Well, you just have to look at, since he joined United, he's won half of the Player of the Month awards in the Premier League since he joined.
Single-handedly
that for
turned
me
the
is a
club
ridiculous stat.
Yeah, it is.
For one player to have done that since he joined
in their first season,
shows the consistency that he has. And I think he is that player that they've been looking for, that they hope to get from Pogba. I think his mind in that midfield just lets other people do whatever they want. If he sees you running there, he'll put it on your foot. If he sees you running there, he'll put it on your foot. If it's 5 meters, 10 meters, 50 meters, he'll put it on your foot. I think, not to mention, he can score goals as well. I mean, regardless of whether they're penalties or not, I mean, penalties, you still have to score it. Yeah. You know, obviously, a lot of people say, oh, but, you know, Bruno's only scoring penalties and all of that. But
yeah, well, you still got to score it.
You look at Manchester City. They went through a patch where Aguero, Jesus, De Bruyne, David Silva, Gundo, and none of them could score their penalties. So, I mean, those are all world-class players. So you have to put respect on Bruno's name and forget about the manner in which he scores the goals. If you score the goal, you score the goal. It's like Harry Kane at the World Cup. People saying, yeah, but his goals were tap-ins and all that. No one else scored more goals than him in that World Cup.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think people need to stop trying to find reasons as to why Bruno shouldn't be hailed as this guy who's coming to save United, and accept that he is this guy. I think they have found
the player.
Touch wood now that they found their Cristiano replacement.
Pretty much. That's what it looks like to me as well. And not in the sense that they're both Portuguese, but really that because when Ronaldo arrived at Man U, he brought this sense of sort of confidence and flair in the way that he played. It was this very, I think, old school football. It was, you know, there was lots of tricks and just quick off the ball. You as soon as you started running, you knew it was a problem. If he got past to the man, there was trouble. But just the way that he ran with the confidence and kind of head-on attacking sort of style is the way that I see Bruno. Similarly, a different role, different position, but similar in that sort of sense. It's kind of very resemblance of the attacking style of Man U.
Yes, and it's the Man U of old. That's the vibe that you get when you watch Bruno play. Yeah, is that he's got that flair.
Yeah, and really having him in the center has made them probably one of, if not the best counter-attacking teams in the league right now.
Well, it's perfect for them because obviously before Bruno came, that number 10 role was being filled by Rashford on some occasions, Mata, Pogba, guys who, yes, they are very talented guys, but they don't have that creative flair
Exactly.
Okay, maybe bar Pogba. That Bruno possesses.
Yeah.
And now Rashford and Martial can focus on
Scoring
using
goals.
their pace, getting in goals, getting into positions to score
Yes,
goals. They don't have to
exactly.
worry about being the creative player like they were before.
Yeah.
So I guess it's similar to the whole Bergwijn thing. Obviously not quite the same thing, but one player coming in to unlock the potential and the abilities of other players.
Yeah.
Long story short, yes, Bruno Fernandes, in my opinion, is the player that United have been looking for.
Yeah.
Whether you're going stats or just gut feel, I don't think you can argue with that.
No, 100%. I'm trying to think what other clips we had going.
I wanted to talk to you about Liverpool's midfield.
Okay.
So now, obviously, everyone knows the quality in that Liverpool side.
Yeah.
And you know the midfielders that they've got, whether it's Henderson, Wijnaldum, Fabinho, Milner, Oxlade-Chamberlain, now Thiago. You spoiled for choice. Yeah, and obviously then there's some players in that lineup like Milner and Fabinho who can play as backs, or Oxlade-Chamberlain who can play in that midfield, or he can play as one of the attacking wingers. So I think, is that the best midfield that the Premier League has ever seen? And now this is obviously now comparing it to midfields of past, of United, Arsenal, Chelsea, even lately with City's midfield when you had Toure, David Silva, De Bruyne, Fernandinho.
Yeah, that one comes first to mind at least in recent times. De Bruyne, David Silva, Yaya Toure, and Fernandinho. That was just class. I mean, and they had one of the best, if not the best, Premier League record ever. So I think they definitely raised the question. Given the depth, and Shaqiri, I don't know if you mentioned Shaqiri as well. They have so many players that can.
Not to mention the youngsters, Minamino, Curtis Jones.
Yeah, no, Liverpool have probably about 10 players that they can pick from to fit 3 positions. So they have plenty of depth. At the same time, though, I mean, okay, if you were to pick the traditional starting Liverpool 3 or 4 midfielders, right now we'd say obviously first one's going to be Henderson. He's going to be in there. Probably, well, Wijnaldum would be the next most consistent position or person to be playing there. But who's the third one that goes in there?
Well, it's tough because obviously they don't have traditional out-and-out number 10 in their team.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Wijnaldum's got creativity, Thiago's got creativity, Fabinho can play little dinks over the top, Henderson himself, he could do it if he really wanted to. So it's tough, but I think for me, it depends on the team that you're playing against. I think if you want someone to go with a bit more creativity, I'd pick Thiago. I think that deeper lying midfield role, he can get forward, he can pick the pass. Also, it kind of frees up then Henderson a bit as well, and Wijnaldum. But if you're looking to be a bit more defensive, a bit more solid in the midfield, I'd go with Fabinho. I think he's an absolute midfield powerhouse. Yeah, he's probably the modern day Fernandinho now. Yes. He's taken over that mantle from Fernandinho, I think. Steal the ball back, create attacks.
But yeah, really, those 3 are probably those 3 are the ones that come to mind. I don't think anyone else is as consistently starting player. Yeah. So if I were to say those 3, I don't think that's probably one of the best midfield teams, at least that has ever existed in the Premier League, or at least in recent times. Largely because I think most of the work in Liverpool's case is done by the forwards. I don't, as good as the Liverpool midfield is, I think a lot of players would benefit from playing right behind the likes of Salah, Mane, Jota, Firmino. You know, to have those players that you can pass the ball to. Geez, what midfielder is not going to do well? So it's a little bit harsh, but yeah, I think a lot of midfielders. That's why we see so many of Liverpool's midfielders play well, because they've got a lot of options. There's a lot of good players around. A lot of good players
that they can pass the ball into, and they know that they'll receive it well, and then they'll do something with it. I think I agree with you on that. I think despite being a world-class midfield, I don't think it's the best that the Premier League has seen.
Definitely, at least comparing it to City and at least that lineup of City players, I'll 100% say that lineup of City players, in my memory, is the best midfield that I think the Premier League has seen.
No, I think I'll have to agree with you. I mean, especially when they went through that phase when Toure was still playing, they had Lampard for the season. I think when you place with guys like that.
And up front, they normally would have, I mean, you had Aguero as the finisher, typical 9 striker, but that was really it. It wasn't, I think the majority of the work was handled by that bulky, just powerful midfield.
That was before the days of Sané, Sterling.
Exactly, it was different.
So, yeah. Back when your wingers was Jesus Navas.
Yeah.
And when he was your winger, I mean, you compare that to the City team now in terms of their forwards. And so I agree with you in that. It was the midfield who
100%
drove that City team. And I think obviously, like, if you look back at older teams like the United that had Scholes in it, Chelsea that had Lampard, Liverpool that had Gerrard. Yes, the world-class players. And obviously, everyone knows who they are and the potential that those teams had. And that's obviously peak Premier League season, as a lot of people remember it. But I think I would go with that City midfield as the 100%. Best midfield the Premier League has seen.
100%. What, in your opinion, is going to be the finishing top 4?
Look, the way that the season's going, the way that the table is shaping up makes it a very, very tough one to predict.
Yeah.
I mean, like we said earlier, Arsenal are only 3 points behind Chelsea. If I remember the table now, I think Arsenal in 11th.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one. But I think if you just look at the teams who have been the most consistent, I think Liverpool, they have that consistency in them, even if they are dropping a point against West Brom or against Newcastle here and there. I think they without a shadow of a doubt have the consistency to take the title again. The team that's surprising me is Man United. Most wins so far out of all the Premier League sides.
Yeah.
Did not expect them to see them in second place.
Yeah, definitely not.
I think that they are definitely title contenders and they're up there. City are obviously, with their games in hand, they're now starting to find their rhythm and themselves are starting to now put together good wins. Chelsea and Tottenham obviously kind of falling off a bit now. They were probably two of the favourites towards the start of the season, whereas both chopping butt down. I mean, Tottenham in third. They now have a game in hand because of the match being postponed against Fulham.
They're still there.
So that's a potential.
Yeah.
Arsenal, you can't write off a team like Arsenal. I know we're about nearly halfway through the season, but I mean, you can't write them off. Being 3 points behind Chelsea. If you're going to say Chelsea are title contenders, you have to say Arsenal are title contenders. And then that obviously includes Villa, Southampton, Everton, Leicester, all the other teams who are in between the traditional top sides.
Yeah. Or at least traditionally and literally right now, the top 10 is so close together that it's very difficult to see who's going to finish that top 4.
Exactly. But I think if you're going based on pure consistency, I think I'd say Liverpool. I think if you have to then play Liverpool against Man United, obviously we've seen things go against the run of a course in seasons before, but I think Liverpool would beat Man U, and that could be the difference in terms of who wins the title. So I'm basing that purely just off of the consistency that Liverpool have had, because they can be consistent. Doesn't matter who's in the starting lineup, they can play brilliant football, whereas a lot of other teams can't. Yeah. If a couple of their key players are missing, then it becomes a completely different side.
AKA Man U.
I was going to say Tottenham.
But that too, yeah.
But yes, Man U. I mean, it would be interesting to see, and touch wood for all the Man U fans, but it will be interesting to see if Bruno Fernandes had to have a season-ending injury now. What would that have? What kind of effect would that have on the stats and Man United's performance?
Well, yeah, if he doesn't play, I don't see Man U winning.
Exactly.
It's that simple.
Whereas if Wijnaldum had to get injured, or don't hate me for comparing Wijnaldum to Bruno, but if Wijnaldum had to get injured, for example, I don't think Liverpool would struggle. Obviously, they have had their injury shares. So, I mean, they lost arguably the best centre-back in the league. Yeah. And they're still keeping clean sheets.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, definitely, I think at the moment, Liverpool and Man U solidify those top two positions in the top 4. The other teams, it's still early for City, so I think City should be considered. Yeah. Even with where they are right now, the game in hand, or games in hand that they have. we could see them easily go into third place after their games are caught up. So I won't write them off. Then I think it's that last slot which is kind of tricky, and at the moment I think it's probably bouncing between Tottenham and Leicester, Everton, honestly, Aston Villa. So there's a lot of teams that can fight for that. Probably at least I would think it's going to be someone like Tottenham or Leicester, but it could be any of them.
Yeah, I think if I had to give a top 4, I'd say Liverpool, Man United, City, Tottenham. I think that's my top 4. I think, like you're saying, like with Everton, Leicester, Villa, I think the thing for them is they need this momentum that they've got going now. And I think if they get 1 or 2 big injuries, like for Villa, if Grealish is out, trouble. Yeah. Leicester, I think Vardy or Maddison out could be trouble. Everton, obviously, James is injured, and the Khan is starting to be a bit shakier, but they're still doing well.
They're doing okay.
But I think if they had to lose Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, maybe even Sigurdsson, he's been playing very well lately, I think that could have some impact on them. Whereas I think if you look at Tottenham or City, the squad depth that they have, you could afford to have an injury, and you still have players who could fill in that role.
Oh, you're absolutely right on
so
that.
I think that's why I would put City and Tottenham as 3 and 4 in the league.
Definitely the more, or I'd say, safer bets to make. I think I agree in that sense. But yeah, I mean, even with Tottenham's great squad depth, they've had some terrible performances this season.
Correct.
So yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think any of these other teams, everyone seems to be stepping it up, and every week you're seeing a new team that's saying they want to compete for, honestly, not even just top 4, but really want to compete for the league. So yeah, I think we could see, I think it's possible that we could see a very different lineup of teams. Obviously, it being so early, it's difficult to predict it right now. Yeah. But yeah, it'll be interesting to do another comparison in about 3-4 weeks off from the end.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, obviously, which teams do fall off as the season draws near to the end. I mean, I would have thought after 16 games, teams would have started falling off already, but the fact that 11th place is so close to being a title contender, it's impossible to predict.
Yeah. But okay, on to the City and Chelsea game, and back at it again next week.
Yeah.